Hey, howdy, hey everyone. We're going to do our Hey Disney top 10 tips for traveling as a Canadian for a Disney trip. As you know, Hey Disney Top 10 counts down our top 10 items in each category, and we want to act as that virtual concierge for you, basically as a inspiration from the Hey Disney Amazon Alexa that's in the Walt Disney parks, where we can give you kind of tips, tricks, reviews, discussion on anything Disney within a specific category. And today, like I said, we are doing the top tips as a Canadian for Disney World. I'm very excited about this. As you know, planning a trip to Walt Disney World can be magical, but for Canadians and non-other US citizens, so anyone who's foreign, there might be a few extra steps you have to take to make the journey a little bit more smoother and budget friendly. From navigating currency exchanges to US travel, to trying to figure out what to pack. We hope that we can provide you these trips for a hassle-free experience from start to finish. And this is a near and dear topic to my heart, as we've traveled to Disney World from Canada so many times. And so I've kind of come up with some tips and tricks that I always do that, in my opinion, make our travel a little bit smoother and less stressful. So I really wanted to share them with you. In today's top 10, we're going to cover everything from things like highballing the exchange rate to managing park tickets and transportation. These practical insights can help you avoid unexpected surprises and make the most out of your Walt Disney World, or even Disneyland or Disney Cruise, whatever it is, vacation. So go get your Mickey ears and get ready to pack for an absolute adventure that's as smooth as a Dole Whip on a sunny day. I'm trying something new here. Do we like that? With that, let's get started. So in no particular order, without further ado, here are Hey Disney top 10 tips for travel for Walt Disney World for Canadians. And as Mickey Mouse himself says, here we go. So my first tip to you is to highball the exchange rate. This simple tip might be able to help you mitigate a potential financial surprise, and that is highball the exchange rate. So for instance, our current rate I think is $1.42 Canadian for $1 US. Now that's at the time of filming. It has steadily sat between 138 to 143 exchange rate Canadian to $1 US just recently, like within the last year. Really do miss the days when it was like $1.13 Canadian. So much better. But with that being said, consider rounding up to your nearest tenth. So for instance, if you have an exchange rate of $1.42 Canadian for that $1 US, round up to $1.50 Canadian in your travel budget. Why is this a good idea, you ask? Well, first, exchange rates fluctuate all the time. You might book something at Walt Disney World, for instance, if you're booking the hotels and you don't have to pay the full price right now because you're doing the put a bit down and then continue to pay for it, your exchange rate will fluctuate. So you can have an unexpected market shift, and for instance, what you thought would cost you $1.35 Canadian to $1 is now costing you $1.45. So always highball it, and then when you do so, it allows you to give yourself more of a buffer. So if the exchange rate worsens, for instance, when you're on your trip, you're covered and you're not in a panic. I've done this multiple times. I often budget things at $1.50 right now, and so it helps mitigate any conversion fees, for instance, taxes or unexpected price changes wherever you are in Walt Disney World, or like I said, wherever you're traveling. By rounding up, you also can give a cushion to your spending, which we know you overspend at Disney. So it also gives you that peace of mind. So it's just a small adjustment as you have it to ensure that you can focus on having fun on your trip rather than being worried about the exchange rate, or if we don't know, sometimes our credit card will charge you an additional exchange fee for the conversion. So having that buffer there really does help, and you're not surprised. So next time you're preparing to come to Disney as a Canadian, be sure to budget ahead with this technique to stay ahead of the game. Next up is carry cash for gas when you are driving down to Walt Disney World. So for those of us who are road tripping, or you have rented a car and are driving around the Walt Disney World area and not taking Disney transportation, I highly suggest that as a Canadian or any other non-US citizen, you bring a little bit of extra cash for gas. I know that some US gas stations require a zip code for credit card purchases, so it can kind of be tricky to non-US residents when you're trying to do that and then get it overridden and things like that. If you're doing the pay at the pump. I've never done that, but I had a couple people do it, and tell me about it. So just carrying cash for gas, you'll bypass that hassle and keep things simple. So maximize your savings on gas and avoid unnecessary fees, and make sure you have some cash on hand for gas during your trip. Also, as a side note, you can also keep that cash and then use it later for a different trip. Let's say again, I budget, this is a side note on a tangent, I budget, let's say, $250 for the way down, and we only actually use $200. I'm just making this up, but let's say it's $250 on the way down and then $250 on the way home. That's in my budget, and we only used $200 each way, so $400. Then you have that extra $100 you can use to either road tripping down or gas if you're driving a car around the area in the future. So, hey, just a little tip there. So my next tip is to take advantage of the CAA and AAA discounts as well as Costco discounts. So as you try and take advantage of those AAA discounts, you can do so within the US as a Canadian with CAA. You can also do this if you have a Costco membership, because Costco, you need that membership to do this. So there are many places as you're taking a traveling adventure to Walt Disney World that allow you to get discounts on hotels, theme park tickets, vacation packages, all within Walt Disney World. And those exclusive member benefits can then factor in other things. So they might have a package that comes with it. Also, as a side note, don't forget, if you run into trouble, use your CAA card because it works just the same as AAA. How do I know that? Our car battery died when we drove to Florida in April 2024, and it had to be replaced on a Sunday in Tennessee, and the amazing AAA agent in Tennessee came out and helped us out. So yeah, I know it works. But having that extra peace of mind is priceless when you're a little bit far from home. Let's say you're road tripping or something like that. You can also get a little extra savings on a hotel package with Disney, or getting those discount theme park tickets, and your membership comes in very handy right now. How we were talking about keeping your budget friendly, well, this is a really great option. And like I said, trust me, if you got that CAA membership or AAA, a Costco membership in your wallet, whip it out when you can. So both of those memberships really just provide you that either discount for being a member, or it allows you to then continue to book different packages at a better rate. As another note to this, it's going to be sign up for a hotel perk and a hotel membership. So what I'm saying is, I've signed up for Hilton Honors program, and yes, you can sometimes use your Hilton Honors and a CAA discount. Not always, but you sometimes can, and it makes it a lot smoother and it's more cost effective. So you can also accumulate points on your Hilton Honors or whatever hotel you choose. So then maybe at the time that you're going, you can use those hotel perks or free night stays or whatever it is, to not only get a discount, but maybe get a night or two free of wherever you're staying, if you're staying off Disney property, if you're driving down to Florida, so on and so forth. So it just really helps with everything. And I highly suggest signing up for a hotel membership and using those CAA, AAA memberships to square out on discounts for attractions, food, anything like that, as well as getting the Costco membership, because you can then get different perks and packages there. So that is why it had to make our list. This next tip is for all my road trippers going down to Disney World, or if you're coming and going to Disneyland, any of those. Okay, so plan your road trip stops ahead of time. If you're planning to drive to Walt Disney World or Disneyland, here are a couple tips that make your road trip a little more smoother, which is planning your stops ahead of time. Trust me when I say don't just wing it. Don't do it. Don't push yourself beyond your limits. It is dangerous and not great for the driver. Also, everybody gets cranky. Knowing exactly where you're going to stop can make the drive more enjoyable, safer, and more manageable, especially if you're traveling with family, because you are trapped in a car and maybe you are done with each other by the end of the night and you know, hey, we got an hour left to our destination. We've been driving all day long. So I have highly recommended this book to so many people. It is called Along Interstate 75, The Must-Have Guide for Your Drive to and from Florida by Dave Hunter. For those of us who are going down I-95, there's also one of those that you can buy. Not sure about Disneyland because I've never driven out there because that is way too far for us. It's a fantastic resource for Canadians because it starts at the tip of I-75, so in Detroit. So if you're coming down that way, and then you can pick up wherever you are connecting in. Let's say if you're coming from the Buffalo area and you end up doing 75, you can pick up there, like things like that. It is perfect because it shows you all the best stops to rest, grab food, and it lists out each restaurant at every stop so that if there's something you're looking for, you can stop for that. Tells you where gas station is, and then that way it helps you plan your stops. Additionally, I highly suggest planning out your stops in terms of food to say we need an hour. So each of those pages in that book is 30 minutes, roughly. So you can flip the page 2 times and then bing, bang, boom, you know where you're looking for food, gas, whatever it may be on your drive down I-75 or 95. Like I said, there could be other ones for the West Coast. I'm not sure. And you know your timing. So that is perfect. The map also shows you, for instance, when we've driven to Walt Disney World, we say, hey, we want to stop outside of Atlanta after we get through. It will show you where Atlanta is. And then it'll show you how far away you are based on that per kilometer or per mile scale. And then you can see what restaurants there are, what gas stations there are after Atlanta. That's just an example. So I highly suggest grabbing that and planning out your stops. Also, we have been driving for at least about a decade and road tripping down to Walt Disney World. We do it about once a year. I've done it 3 times a year and don't recommend that one, but I've done it. We plan our stops for hotels ahead of time also. Early on, sometimes we would say, okay, we want to do 3 stops on this trip and hotels, and then so we'd stop, for instance, in Kentucky, then at the end of Tennessee, and then in Georgia. Don't. By that point, you're frustrated. And do what's best for your family. If you have little kids and you need to stop often, do it. However, I highly suggest picking your hotels ahead of time. Kind of goes back to what I was saying before. Don't just wing it. Know your limits. Know how long you can drive for that driver. Know how long you can be in the car with your family. Anything like that. And plan your stops out. So we have a lot of favorite hotels down I-75 when we travel. And so we pick roughly the same ones in the same vicinity just because we know we can do that drive and it knows our limit. Every time we get past another 100 kilometers, all right, we got another X to go. We can do this. So it truly makes a world of difference knowing that you're going to have a place to stop opposed to just driving till you go, okay, I can't drive anymore. Finding a place, maybe it's full, anything like that. Next up is a tip that would be exclusive for Canadians, so somebody who's not international, like outside of Canada, and I apologize, but that is fly out of the United States of America if you can instead of Canada down to Walt Disney World. Now, if you're flying to Walt Disney World and live near a border city that has an airport, my tip to you is to save some serious money and fly out of a U.S. airport. Highly suggest you check out flights from the United States, fly domestically to Walt Disney World. And you can also go stay in a hotel before your flight just to make sure you're comfortable instead of flying directly, if you can, from Canada to the US. Now, I know some areas in Canada you can't because that drive's going to be like 6-7 hours to the next major airport, but that's just a suggestion. Like I said, it's significantly cheaper. My next tip is to carry border crossing cash and check your border fees ahead of time. Why do I say that? Well, when you're traveling across the land border, you always have to pay a fee to use that method of transportation, whether it be bridge, tunnel, whatever it is. For Canadians or anybody else crossing that land border, the fees vary quite a bit from location to location, and they also vary in currency. So it's not just about currency exchange, it's actually about checking the actual cost to cross the border because it can differ from location to location. So for instance, crossing at the Windsor, Ontario, Detroit, Michigan bridge has a different fee than the Sarnia, Ontario, Port Huron, Michigan bridge. By doing a little bit of research ahead of time, you can budget more accurately and avoid surprises. Why do I say bring cash? Because sometimes there are unexpected costs or situations where, let's say, the debit machine goes down. A little preparation as you're crossing the bridge to do customs just gives you that little extra, like, okay, you have a backup if needed, so your Walt Disney World trip can go a little bit more smoother and be enjoyable. my 7th tip for you for this Hey Disney Top 10 Tips for Traveling to the United States as a Canadian to go to Disney World is to check your credit limits and for the exchange rate. Why I say that is when preparing for a trip to Walt Disney World, it is critical to check your credit limits in relation to the exchange rates. For Canadians and any other non-US citizen, this means ensuring your credit card can handle more than the cost of your purchase. For example, if you have a rental car and the rental car is $1,000 US, they might put a hold on your credit card for $200 for damages and incidentals, which is normal. If you're doing that at an exchange rate of 1.45, your debatable $1,200 cost, including that hold, is about to look like $1,700 in Canadian. If your credit limit is only $1,500 because you weren't anticipating this, you might find yourself in a tough spot and it's not going to go through. So it's always great to combat this, to overpay your credit card before you leave for your trip if your credit limit isn't that high. So if you only have a $2,000, $3,000 credit limit, that's fine. No problem there. Just overpay your card just to make sure those funds are there. It will boost your limit. So instead, let's say you paid it by $2,000 and you only have a $2,000 limit. Well, now you have $4,000 on your credit card. That creates that cushion for any unexpected exchange rate charges, anything like that, and then allows you to be more comfortable. So for instance, the rental car that we just talked about, that would be $1,700 Canadian roughly. It then can go through your credit card. You had the money to pay for it anyways, but now your credit limit is still okay. By taking these steps, you can avoid stress and keep your Disney adventure as magical as it's meant to be. Number 8 is check your phone plan, everyone. So when headed to Walt Disney World, it is essential to make sure your phone plan is set for use in the United States if you are planning on using it. So for Canadians traveling to the US or travel internationally anyways, you have a few options to avoid roaming fees. So first, you want to make sure as a Canadian your plan includes the USA and Canada coverage that lets you bring your phone without extra charges. Many carriers offer this. For instance, I have a US Canada phone plan, so mine is easy. I don't have to add on anything else. If yours does not, then consider and you want to use your phone, which I highly suggest at least one person uses their phone with cell service, not in airplane mode, if you're in a family in Canada, coming to the US, things like that, because you want to make sure you have the ability in case of an emergency. Get a roaming package. So for instance, Rogers has the Roam Like Home, which is for $12 a day for the length of your stay. You get to use your phone in the US. Bell Cellular has a similar option. I believe TELUS does. So those are the major Canadian phone plans. If you're not with one of those, check yours. If you're in a different international place going to Walt Disney World, check yours. Alternatively, you can switch your phone to airplane mode, and this setting disables cellular data, allows you to use Wi-Fi for messaging apps like iMessage or WhatsApp, and you can make a Wi-Fi call. You can still be in touch without incurring roaming charges, or my cousins have done this a few times when we go to the States with them, so they just turn theirs off. But one of us does have a phone with cellular capabilities at all time. By planning ahead, you can make sure you have this option to stay in touch for safety, to navigate. You do not know when you're going to need to turn your GPS on your phone off because the GPS, let's say in your car that you're driving, or your car doesn't have a GPS, goes wonky. So just make sure you're able to enjoy your Disney magic without any communication hiccups while you're in Walt Disney World. But that is one I really highly suggest, is to check your phone and make sure roaming is okay if you want to use that. I think this one goes for anyone traveling to Walt Disney World, and this is expect to spend 25% more at least. So when planning your Walt Disney World trip, I really highly suggest planning to spend more than your budget. Around 25% more than your budget is a good rule of thumb. Might sound like a Debbie Downer when I say that, but it's really practical to help you prepare. The magic of Disney has ways of tempting you with extra purchases, from souvenirs to snacks to treats to whatever it is. And you might find yourself drawn to things that you didn't plan for, such as those limited edition Mickey ears, or an extra special dining experience, or something along those lines. But by budgeting a little bit more, you'll have a financial cushion to cover those spontaneous splurges without feeling stressed. With this, I highly suggest that 25% more gets tacked on with the exchange rate. So let's say it's, as a Canadian, it's 25% more plus 1.45 exchange rate, like whatever it is. Again, this will help you budget your trip, and again, without having those exchange rate issues or anything like that. Every travel I go to Walt Disney World, I count on spending way too much than I anticipated. Not that it's bad. You just come home with so many different things, whether it's from Disney World or we go off property to Target. They have different clothes, like anything like that. I find myself spending a little bit more than I had budgeted for. The exchange rate already stretches so much of the Canadian dollar, so everything will add up. By highballing that exchange rate, like we talked about earlier, as well as having those opportunities to budget yourself that 25% more, you have that cushion from impulse buys that always end up in your cart. And that is why I highly suggest that as our top 10 tips. My last of the top 10 tips for traveling to the United States from Canada to go to Walt Disney World is to print it out. This might sound very old school, but let me share a tip that has saved me more than one time in any of my Disney World vacations. And that is print out all of your reservations and confirmation numbers between hotels, flights, park tickets, directions, whatever it is. Physical copies can be a lifesaver. I've encountered numerous system failures, phones that don't cooperate because they only don't cooperate when you need them to cooperate, and so many other tech hiccups that I can count on multiple fingers and toes. Oy. But every time I have a printout copy and it comes to my rescue. Yes, I own a printer. Yes, I'm a millennial who owns a printer. And I print out doubles, sometimes triples for everything when I travel. For instance, I think I was at the Walt Disney World Hotel, Animal Kingdom Lodge, and their system went down. When I went to do my reservation, they were like, I don't see this here. So I had the printout. It was quick. They just had to do a little navigating. Bing, bang, boom. Everything went as planned. All good. I've been staying at different places and they can't pull different things up. This is just in general, like throughout my entire life. Walt Disney World, I can always have that ticket confirmation on my phone if I didn't buy a hotel package. Anything along those lines. Flights. Holy, the amount of times that the check-in booth, okay, everybody knows the one I'm talking about. They're in MCO, so the Orlando airport, and they have all the little screens sitting there and you can pick your airline and then put in your confirmation number. Those have acted up, or for instance, I couldn't pull it up on my phone because the Wi-Fi at the time was weak to get that confirmation number. I had a printout and I always use it. So having hard copies has saved me more times than once, either just traveling in general or going to Walt Disney World. As a Canadian, they are also very helpful when you are crossing the border to show as proof of where you're going. It might feel like an extra step, and really silly to carry extra paper. I have a flexible binder for them all, but print out those documents to be prepared for the unexpected issues. You want to make your trip magical. You have a solution. Print them out. I know it sounds different and silly and all that stuff, but if you print them out, you don't need them. But if you do need them, they're right there. So, all good. I have 3 honorable mentions. So here we go with this one. Our first honorable mention is that know that the over-the-counter medications in Walt Disney World, so in the United States, are a little different than they are in Canada. Second honorable mention here is photocopy all important documents. This is whether you're going to Walt Disney World or you're going canoeing up the road. I don't care. But make sure if you're headed to Walt Disney World from Canada, anywhere outside the US, or in the US is that point, one thing is to keep in mind is photocopy everything that is an essential document, such as your passport, your driver's license, your health card, that's Canadian, or your health insurance in the States, any insurance details, anything. Again, silly that you have extra paper, but they might be lifesavers for an unexpected issue. You might be in that situation where you misplace a document, such as your passport, have it stolen or damaged. The copies will really help you get to where you need at the time. Also, leave a copy at home, okay? Store the copy separate from where you would store your original, so don't put your copies in your wallet. Let's say you lost your wallet, but make sure that they are with you. You have it. Have a copy at home so that if somebody is at home, let's say you and your friend are just traveling, you can call wherever you need to get those copies. They can be lifesavers and allow you to focus on that Disney adventure instead of dealing with a headache of a lost paperwork, which is never fun. My last honorable mention, and I swear this one should have been an actual point, which is check Disney's special offers page for exclusive Canadian offers. So Disney Parks, as well as Disney Cruise Line and Adventures by Disney, all provide special discounts at different times for Canadians. For different lengths of stay, different ticket packages, or cruises. I've been on a Canadian discounted cruise. I bought, when I didn't have an annual pass, Canadian discounted tickets. So be sure to check that special offers page. It actually helps. It's not as much as the exchange rate because the exchange rate is pretty high, but it helps with the exchange rate. So if it says it's $1,000, it's closer to that $1,000 instead of that 1.42 conversion rate like we were saying earlier. They're very exclusive offers, so be sure to check those out before you book. Now, if you have already booked and you need to apply these, always call Disney, see if they can apply them to your current ticket package, hotel reservation, whatever it may be. And they're more than happy to help assist you in what they can to apply that discount to your stay or ticket package, depending on what you've bought and how you've bought it. So again, just make sure that you do that because they can save you quite a bit of money at the time. All right, everybody, that was it. We have concluded our Hey Disney Top 10 travel tips for traveling to the US as a Canadian to go to Walt Disney World. And it is clear that there's a little bit more planning that might be involved, but it'll go a long way to ensure a smooth and enjoyable trip. From taking advantage of discounts with hotels or park tickets from things like CAA or AAA, the partnership there, from ensuring that you have various hotel benefits or the importance of photocopying reservations. Hey, it is all there, and you want to make sure that these practical tips can be making your Disney experience much more magical and be the best it can possibly be. Here at Happily Adventures After, I said that wrong.